I'd like to welcome everyone to Behind the Grow. This is our 10th edition. I have today what I think is one of the most interesting and eclectic guests I've had on yet, AC Moon Cameron. She is a 25-year plus figure in the cannabis industry. There isn't one thing to describe you. I like to start as horticulturalist, meaning you understand the plant, you're an activist, you're an educator, you're a cultivator, of course, you're an
Absolutely.
inventor, you're a consultant, and I'll say most important I say is that you are a mother, and also I think to your plants, as we'll get into your. We have one plant I know that you've had in veg. I think you said for 19 years, but we're gonna come back to that. Um, and again, it's I was just saying to you a second ago that I listened to some of your other podcasts just to kind of hear about you and prepare for this. And of course, in every podcast, it starts exactly the same way. Like, say, so AC, why don't you tell us a little bit about your past? And and I don't normally do that with my guests because I've known most of my guests a long time. So we talk about like our history together, but yours is really interesting. It's not common. It's it has it reads like a movie. I think you could probably make a movie out of your first 10 years, or from like 10 years
No,
old to
definitely.
22 years old. Like those years were for you were really quite amazing. So if you don't mind, as you've done in every other podcast, you want to just tell us a little bit about those the early years and how you were exposed to cannabis and kind of how that shaped who you are today.
Oh, heck yeah. I'll deep dive into the like super duper past. I'm actually where a lot of it happened right now. I'm up on the ridge in North San Juan, California, which is where another 40 miles up into the middle of nowhere is where I was raised. And a lot of the people around me, grew cannabis, but I didn't know what it was both from other plants as a young person. It's just like the rest of the plants in the garden, that's just what it is. So we just water them all, and that was just it. But as a second generation, my sister's name is, marijuana, Mary Jane, and I didn't really figure out that my dad was so into cannabis after Vietnam until years later. I didn't really have that like push, but once I hit about 12, 13, and I hit the streets, I was a runaway from the woods. I decided to go hitchhike to Oregon to find my father. And so me and my boyfriend at the time, we stuck our thumb out at 13 years old and we hitchhiked to the next state. And had these crazy adventures where, there was this one dude that said he worked with High Times, so that, all these things, and he gave us peyote and
Sure.
just like this wild series of events that landed me to finally finding my dad. And he was
Okay.
super, yeah, he was super into ganja even up there. So I was like, oh, hey, but he was also into a lot of other things that, it's not my jam. And I think a lot of people that came back from Vietnam were a bit toxic and unhealed. While luckily
Yeah.
my generation is just all ganja. But yeah, my mom
Yeah.
had cancer and stuff. And even though I was estranged from her, I had like a real passion for everybody that was passing away. Just a couple years later, when I was 17, my father passed away from cancer and alcoholism and fighting and all that good stuff. And a lot of the people in my community started dying. And I realized, I needed to go do something. And I dated this one cat that he kind of got me off the streets in the way that his parents were not well off, but well to do, and had an apartment down in San Francisco. And so we'd rage down there on the weekends. We'd like just like smoking the back of anything, and we'd rage down there to the wharf. And I saw the beginning of what was the cannabis movement, really in the way of activism, in the way of medical models like first popping up in 1999. And I realized by that time that like something needed to be fucking, excuse my language, something needed to be changed,
It's good.
something needed to go on. So I grabbed a clipboard, out of an activist's hand and ran it into the crowd. I think at, yeah, I think at I don't know, probably like 16 years old or something like that, and just started grabbing signatures and was like, "Hey, let's legalize cannabis." Like, if I had known then what I know now, I would have been all like, "Don't legalize cannabis." But
Yeah.
hey, we didn't know we just wanted medical access back then, so it was like a big thing. It was a super big thing, and it kind of developed into this whole like now there's this clique in Cali legacy where like the people that rocked it hard back then, like we all kind of have like this, wink and a nod of like we were the only ones that were rolling in the 90s where there was riots and like literally it's all the stuff that Sublime wrote about that, April 20, what is that, April 26, 1992, there was riots on the streets. Where were you? That kind of stuff. Like we all raged on it hard. So cannabis was like our way of, I think everybody that was deviants came together. That's what I decided and still think. Like if you're the oddballs or not the jocks, or like most of us are nerds. Like I'm in a library right now. And I came to the North San Juan Library to make sure we had good reception. And I'm born nerd. And I think all the nerds came together and decided to smoke some herb. And then all of a sudden, the cannabis movement was super boring. And then we
Well,
rocked it and we changed all sorts of shit. And we still are. So hopefully we can keep it going.
yeah, it's amazing, and then again, I didn't know this. I mean, I know you mentioned it, but I didn't really catch on in the beginnings. Again, I learned it listening to other podcasts. But when you started the Munchie Moon and did the edible company, I mean, that was a long time ago. You were one of the first people. I knew you're making it from
Yep.
extracts or something. We've always talked. If you want your edibles to taste like weed, make it with weed. If you want your
Yep.
edibles to taste like, and I always find like I still remember cookies I made from butter 25 years ago when we went whenever Gladiator was in the movie theater. So
Yes.
that's a long time ago. And we made butter at my cottage, and my cottage where I live now, we moved tore down the house and I live here now. But the cottage smelt, I thought it smelled like cannabis butter until the day we tore it down. It for
I
me, I was
sweat
talking
and
about
it
like
still smells like hash butter. Like you can
10
literally
years.
sweat it out of your pores. Yeah, I started making edibles. I think it was like 1998, 99. I was like a kid. And by 2001, I started Harvest Moon because there was like everybody was addicted to something. And so when you go into these aids, like Act Up, bless up to the people of Act Up and the Mission Street, and to those that have been true legacy, which is like Joe, Sweet Leaf Patients Club. I mean, he goes around to this day and makes sure patients have free access to cannabis. True patients have free access to cannabis.
Yeah, we
And these
have.
people are the ones that really built the movement with us. And I was the kid just like raging forward, like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then I figured out how to grow cannabis and it was on in the woods. So I got a little bit crazier from there. But yeah, Harvest Moon 2001, I always say caution may free your mind because I've been munching away at modern medication since the turn of the century, hoping that in some way that we can find a way to have some like plant freedom, at least not do what they're doing now. But now it's slipping out of our hands, all this work, and now Big Pharma is just getting handed it. So it's a real,
Well,
it's a hard,
I like
it's
to
a
go right.
hard pill to swallow. Ah,
I'll tell
ah,
you, I like
ah.
to go. Let's go right, I want to go right into big pharma, and I'm just gonna kind of like on the stuff you say. So, and I like to say this to anyone who's listening. I've met a lot. I've been in this industry a long time. I have met so many people, and every time I talk to you, I feel like I learned something new. I'll say this with all the respect. You kind of put me in my place almost. Not like you do it on purpose, but you're like, well, no, like, go off. We'll talk about the oligarchy later, We'll talk about Germany and this stuff. And I thought, oh, Germany's great. You're like, no. I'm like, well, sit back, let you talk. And at the end, I'm like, damn, like, so it's amazing. You really are an amazing wealth of knowledge, and you have this that
I
I think
appreciate
anyway,
it.
the right angle of where to approach cannabis from. So it's not just a business standpoint, but it is. You consult these companies on how to run a proper business. It's not just on, oh, I know you're super on the organic side, and we'll talk about that also. But I'm sure you don't mind consulting people who grow salts either. I mean, I'm guilty, but this idea of how big pharma is influencing or trying to change or get involved in the industry now. A lot of people have no idea. They don't know. They think that it's really competitive, everyone's fighting against each other, but it's just dudes and dudes, or like growers against growers, and government taxing us. But they don't think or know about that. So why don't you enlighten us a little about that? What's
Well,
going
right
on there?
now, I think that people really need to start with just educating themselves. I feel like a lot of people have kind of fallen into this laziness, which is really propelling the use of AI and not really
Hmm.
taking the time to read bills, to read laws, to read like how is it that they're writing and shutting down our country and then writing in, oh, if the country will stay shut down if you don't illegalize hemp, intoxicating products, they like bind these bills together in a very, very corrupt manner that allows them to really stay in power because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And obviously, we need the country to run. So they put a lot of people in a really awkward position to have that one piece of paper have all of these options. They're like, here, you can free yourself, but you got to cut off your leg to free yourself. And it's like some very Saw tactics, like straight up Saw the movie tactics. But what I've been seeing right now is like people don't understand that rescheduling and descheduling are like just vastly different concepts and vastly different terminology. And descheduling is the only path to freedom for the plant, for the people and the patients, as well as the entrepreneurs that wish to work in it. They're using different aspects of the rescheduling topic to basically inform the public that we would have less taxes. It was a 1080E type of concept where, okay, you'll have tax write-off, but in true application, besides concepts, there's not a lot of entrepreneurs that are even going to freaking be able to, make it that long to be able to pay taxes. We've lost over a third of all growers. We have, very few retail operations still open. Dispos are almost gone. And as we have this wave of the East Coast and the Middle America picking up with the same excitement as we had in the 90s, as well as internationally, there's this real affluence of being able to, like, it's palatable when you see that money is power. At these points, you really can tell like all of these laws, all of these tactics, all of this way that they're governing us is very bought and paid for platform. And
It is.
so it's really hard for us to fight it because they have more money than all of us combined in the entire cannabis industry throughout the entire country. And so it's really daunting. And so all we have is our voice and platforms like this and social media and these other things where we can bond together in like a social culture override that enlightens people that rescheduling is actually taking it to a point where it is a pharmaceutical element that's able to only be prescribed by medicinal pharmacists. So again, it puts the power back in the hands of medical doctors, which we all know was like a major capitalistic scam where we could
Oh,
go in and get a script for 100 plants, almighty be it. It doesn't have anything. When we get federally rated, it means nothing. It's not worth toilet paper, but it gives people this sense of like, well, the doctor said said I could, it's a very God complex of like, doctor said I could. So they think it's going to hold up
I,
lots of rates.
I still remember walking with a friend of mine many, many years ago, just after legalization, and we were in Venice Beach. And if you walk to
Yeah.
Venice Beach, hey, come get your permit, come get your permit. So my friend who he was from Quebec, but he lived in Florida, so he had American citizenship. I couldn't get anything at the time because I was Canadian, but he went in. So he was 20 minutes later, he comes out and he looks at me, he's like, Steve, what's wrong? He's like, I'm depressed. I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you depressed? He goes, I don't know. The doctor said I'm depressed. Like that's how he got his thing. I thought it was a joke, right? Like the
Right. They
doctor
tell
will
you
just
what your
try
problem is. They'll tell
whatever.
you.
They will find a problem for you. Don't worry about it.
Right. And rescheduling is really putting that back into a
That's it.
formidable hands, as well as opening it up to testing. A lot of people don't understand that the only reason that we have this underground culture of cannabis, where it's literally us against them, where we can speak about the man and we know it's not our neighbor. It's the three-letter people that we don't like to talk about. It's because of the fact that it was prohibited for any sort of pharmaceutical company to be researching it, to do anything. Every bit of information that has come through the flywheels is grassroots. It's from all of us, multi thousands of people that have collectively gained this information through cultivating the plant, through working with the plant, through working through their local industries and watching it manifest and evolve. And right now, if they're able to syncans, there's synthetic cannabinoids called syncans. And those syncans and the synthetic cannabinoids are a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. And so that's one of the reasons that they're governing and have put governance on the hemp derived cannabinoids, is because that's a porthole and a gateway for them to be able to create syncans, which is, again, they're derived from a base molecule but synthesized to have bulk manufacturing, which is what everything is in big pharma. We know it. And it's going to be like steroids and testosterone and like all of those pills that you have to still go to the doctors for. But I mean, everybody knows it's not going to kill you, but it's still barbiturates and all these other things. And it raises the minimum mandatory sentence for anybody that's caught with cannabis, which puts the power back in the hands of a federally funded, privatized prison system. How is it that we can have prison systems that are federally funded but privately owned by oligarchy members, which in turn capitalize the criminal system against cannabis and anything else, drug users not offering help, but again, creating criminal cycles that put huge amounts of money in the pockets of lawyers, of all sorts of, white collared criminals that have evaded taxes, have given Hippocratic oaths that are hypocrisy, and haven't led anyone to true healing, but have really just lined the pockets of the fucking biopharma companies that'll send them to the Caribbean for the next great break. Here, push some Xanax, push this, but
Well,
and
would
when
you
we give
say,
that power away, we're robbing information, education, through unbiased research, and the ability to just live a free life where we can just grow a fucking plant and just be
as
free.
it obviously should be, and so a lot of people have questioned, and I've had this conversation with a bunch of people about U.S. federal legalization.
Mhm.
What the hell are they waiting for? For one, you figured that Trump would have jumped on it right away because it's money for the government. They can tax. They don't have to police. They can tax.
Not as
And
much
then it
money
comes
as
to
they get from criminalization.
the full circle of back to, and it's a conversation you and I've had more than once, and it's one of my, like, I love when you go off on this stuff, by the way. It's awesome. But this whole
Sorry.
oligarchy bit, right? The idea of that you have a few billionaires, maybe a trillionaire, that very few of these, be it puppet masters, that we kind of know whether you're red or you're blue in the U.S. These two government uh, groups are ultimately controlled by the people who are funding them, and it's not a big group of people. It's these ultra rich trying to have some degree of control, and
Yep.
control often comes with limiting freedom. So why states can pass, because it's a smaller, it's a smaller entity. They're still controlled in state levels, but to see California
Mhm.
or New York, these big powerful states legalizing, recreationally legalizing, allowing home grow and whatnot, yet the Fed still says no. It just seems almost a catch 22, or a weird reality that seems impossible. Like, well, how is this possible? I mean,
Oh,
I know how it's possible, but back to the same story. Do you see federal legalization coming in this
no,
administration, or no?
no. I don't think it will come in our lifetime because,
Really?
again, it's all about math. And math is about, again, it's not only about the criminal justice system and the way that they can capitalize off of lawyers and those that have paid higher value dollar for whatever indoctrination into different career clubs that you can get higher dollar money. So that's lawyers, it's doctors, it's the upper echelon of what society is incurring. There are actually a many percentage of them are bought and paid for by the companies that they represent. And that's true for a lot of us. It's a job. It's not necessarily, something that we can persecute an individual on, but people are doing their jobs. And so when you add that all of the numbers from big pharma to doctors to education bases to, prison guards to all of the things numbered. It casts a shadow over any amount of money that cannabis could make in the legal system. And
Tax
so,
dollars.
yeah, I mean, in tax dollars, it's just they're positioning for themselves for global. And so global domination, we already know that America still plays a huge part in, kind of steering global waves of legalization.
Yes.
We can look back and see that world treaty was definitely written into where a lot of the Asian countries, including Japan, Thailand, and many others, are not allowed to participate or use hemp or allow hemp to be grown within their walls, within their boundaries, by actual like violation of world treaty. And that's as far back as World War II, where you see those types of tactics happening. And so they trained each of their societies to be very persecutive of cannabis for fear of breaking those world treaties. And again, giving America dominance to set precedents on what would become these international law bases. And it pisses me off like something fierce that like I'll go off one time on this and then I'll keep it low and slow. Because how is it that PGRs, okay, so PGRs are plant growth regulators. Plant growth regulators use hormones, and hormones that make the difference between you being a man and myself being a woman. These hormones are synthesized and injected into large agricultural crop fields in order to manipulate fruiting, ripening, ability for preservation, and many other elements in agricultural crops. PGRs are illegal in California to a certain extent. Many other places they're not, but that illegality has not extended to cannabis. And so that's one thing that I have never seen testing. They want to test us for all of these different mycological contaminants in order for us to have compliant COAs to work within the metric legal systems. But nobody's testing for PGRs. But yet we have this huge system of where you're seeing hermaphroditic tendencies in flora and fauna all over the world. And it's because those PGRs are being injected into what we consume. So when we have no research on this at all, how is it that they could legalize things in hemp in California prior to um, Trump just actually, prohibiting, hemp derived cannabinoids? We already had a hemp ban for hemp being grown in California because we have such a strong cannabis farming network. They, just never allowed hemp. And so hemp's been dominated by Oregon up above us and in surrounding areas. So you can see that there's definitely a play going on of how they're weighing out with taxation and consumption. Because if you have taxation in partnership with home grow, then you're really relying on keeping the education of the people down so that they don't know how to grow their own, so that they don't know how to cultivate their own, so they don't know how to farm their own, so they don't know about the problems that are being injected by large agriculture that is being, either created here or imported. And
Right.
so how can you have like say Nevada, for instance? A lot of people were just like, oh, Nevada's legal. Back in the day, it used to be just like, we're going to prison if we got 2 seeds in Nevada, right? If you look at the laws, though, and you really look at them close, there's an MSO born, a multi state operator, meaning a large operating cannabis company born law that was lobbied directly into the state of Nevada that says that if you are growing, you're sure, cannabis is legal, but it is a felony to grow cannabis within 20 miles of a dispensary. So what does that tell you? It says that you can't have freedom and taxes in the same space.
Weird.
So they're either going to try to funnel all of the purchasing and all of the mechanics of cannabis to the large, operations that are feeding those dispensaries through the metric system that are bought and paid for, or they're going to offer the ability to grow your own, but they can't do that in tandem, which is really, really weird to me. It's a little corrupt there, don't you think? that's purposely taking the freedom of people's education and the right to farm in exchange for having a heavily taxed, over standardized system that they can gain money through retail. So the big battle. I see the battle going on individual states. Everybody's got their own
Yeah.
endemic battle based on their location, and that's true worldwide,
Well,
all the way down to India.
let's shift to another country, and then I want to come back to Virgin Islands and hear all about what's going on there. But let's just talk about Germany for fun, because I went to Mary Jane Berlin this year, and I came back and I remember talking to you and saying, "Oh, what an amazing show! 60,000 people. It felt so free. Everyone's smoking everywhere. They have all these new home cultivation laws where now it's anybody can grow. I think it's 4 plants at home. They're not doing large cultivations. They are doing some social clubs, but it's so unlike Canada, where when we opened up Canada, it was these massive grows. There was legal dispensaries for rec everywhere, and the hobby market just crashed,
Right.
crashed, as is crashing in the United States, because we live, especially in North America, with these uh, um, this whole culture of convenience. Like, why on earth would I
Oh
go to
yeah.
all the trouble to grow something? I can go buy it there. Now, someone who
I got
smokes
a pre-roll.
yeah, if you smoke a quarter ounce a day, let's say, you might grow your own because you don't want to spend 10 grand a year on weed. But
Right.
then all of a sudden, you find this guy and that guy, or we have it often in the like in Oka, where they have the Native American uh,
Hmm.
uh, reservations, where they have, like, there's more weed stores in all of Quebec in one little strip. There's nothing like, it's the Vegas of weed. It's in a pretty
That's awesome
impoverished.
tactic.
It's
Um,
insane in there, and the prices are about a third of if you go buy it, legally. And that's our black market right now, because there's no dealers.
yeah,
So legalization kills the dealer. Now, in states like California, where you have so many tens of millions of people, it could be a little bit different, like in Southern California or other states where it's not legal, but it hasn't done it. So I thought Germany, this was really amazing. I thought, oh, this is, and then you just said, well, no, because of what's the
well,
problem with Germany?
so what you have to really study is how the world oligarchy organization has come. There's
Oligarchy.
the original 13 families. Those concepts and everything else are like, they're not far from the truth of still holding. I mean, generational wealth is generational wealth. So no matter what, it's being held within a generational status. There's no goal in proliferating those world domination measures of commerce out. It's retained through hundreds and hundreds of years. And so you can look back at where the beginning of mankind's evolutionary points went, right? So a lot of it was in our culture, specifically colonialization, obviously came from Europe. And a lot of everything, including Big Pharma, was birthed in Germany. And so Big Pharma having completely centralized access to huge amounts of money that is filtered through all of the different European countries that we won't talk about. They are the same people that actually own the gas companies as well, one and the same. They're the same oligarchy that governs those points. And I've started to realize that when they kind of timidly give you this, like, hey, we'll throw the public a little, here, you can grow 2 plants, you can grow 4 plants. It's kind of almost like let's calm the masses because we're about to do some stuff over here kind of feel. And so to me, my fear is the concept of syncans. I've done a lot of studying on the, synthesizing of cannabinoids, which is true. You can look at heroin, heroin is the same plant that is morphine, that is the same plant that is all opiates. It is the same plant utilized in a huge spectrum of different extract storage or use. If it's funneled through the okey dokes of the medical practitioners, then it's an okey doke. Yeah, that's cool. But if it's funneled through the black market, it's heroin or opium or these, but even if it went to a doctor in the same modality, this is that's the only thing governing the word medical, is the fact that it's gone through certain hands, through certain standardizations, and the ones that stamp it medical have to be paid. And so right now, if they're handing cannabis to the medical side, it takes the power away from the people. And when it's governed by places like Germany that have such a massive amount of connections throughout the world, I mean, they're standing at a center point where you can just, it's just a lightning bolt everywhere. No, I mean, I wasn't implying anything by saying lightning bolt, but hey, there could be some truth to that. It's there just needs to be more awareness, I think, of what they're doing. I think a lot of people are watching TikTok and YouTube and
What are they
everything else,
doing? What are
and
they doing?
then they're doing is making huge amounts of umbrella companies underneath the same oligarchy heading, because some people are so rich they need to operate and open multiple companies that they will govern everything from fertilizer, because fertilizer and gas companies are in bed together, and then they also govern big pharma. If you govern these three things and then look into the major crops such as wheat, soy, and as we know, all the, cotton, those major crops, all you have to do is look on a map, see which countries have the most of that agricultural crop, and then you'll know, where the next, or what is governed most by the oligarchy. That's why Africa is held down, because, they can govern their crops and then steer them with lack of education so that they can't revolt. And I don't mean to get too politically disordered here, but
No,
I
I'm
got
having you
my
on. I like
certification in integrative pest management out of Africa with the Soy Institute. And they really, there's a lot of things that you wouldn't want to know soy is used for. It's not just for consumption. It's being used for everything from, plastic bombs to, the wiring in your car. And so I don't know. A lack of education, I think, is really what they rely on. So they're going to
so
be able to hand us another pill bottle in no time, or another vape pen in no time, another liquid that has some magic something in it.
let's say people are listening, they listen to you and they're interested, but they don't totally get it. Where would people go to like where would someone I like to think of myself as a pretty educated guy. I ask a lot of questions, I know a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people, like you being one of them. But there's still so much I don't know, especially about this subject. That's why I like the
Me too.
oligarchy. And I'm not a conspiracy theory kind of guy, but I believe that there still exists. There's still all this crazy stuff we don't know. So where would a regular person start? They wanted to educate themselves and not find them going down the rabbit hole of all the bullshit conspiracy, but actual what's going on in the world. How would someone start to educate themselves?
I'm not going to throw them under too hard, because they do own the island, 80% of the island that I work on. But start by researching the Rothschilds, and then
Yeah.
looking into, you know, don't necessarily rely on AI, because, a lot of the Google search engines and things like that are steered through major biasisms that are written in on purpose by the oligarchy. But look into who created the first biopharmaceutical companies, who created the first pharmaceutical companies, who created the first perfume companies. Remember, perfumes are terpenes. Terpenes are now governed by the cannabis industry. Perfume is from the 1400s. This is hundreds of years of difference in commerce and billions of dollars at stake. Just go along, and once you start identifying, you can make a list and say, where was the first big pharma? Who owned it? Who opened it? Who's the first big petroleum? Who was the largest inventors? Because I'm a patented inventor, I have an obsession with researching anybody that was around Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla is like a super iconic person to me. I've studied so many of his plans that I can't even tell you. I own one of the books that was in his library, and there's fact, not fiction. And the fact is, these are little details you'll start catching. And then once you start catching it, all starts making sense. The intelligence officer that worked for the military, that was in charge of taking the files from Nikola Tesla's New York Times Square hotel high-rise apartment was John Trump, who is Donald Trump's great uncle. And that great uncle was in charge of 13 missing files from the Tesla files that later became military developments and other privatized developments such as Bluetooth. And you can see these facts are the ones that were supporting or against Tesla are either in power or against power, and it's all from Europe. So, like Westinghouse, what is Westinghouse to us in this day and age? It's a label on a light bulb. We don't understand what it is. They're actually one of the largest, like, holding companies for everything from the largest paint companies that are attached to the oil companies to the largest alcohol companies that are attached to the oil companies. It's all one and the same. So once you start opening any door to any major commerce, it all tracks back to the same original people that were smart enough to capitalize on everybody else with their innovations, which I can't hate on. But when it takes you 100 years later and you're still kind of trying to govern people with a lack of education, I get a little spicy.
Well,
It's not what fire.
so all that said, looking at places like Germany or United States, here you found yourself consulting and working with the government or the universities in the British Virgin Islands. I say British Virgin Islands, but it's really American.
American Virgin Islands. I work down in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is British controlled territory, but they have
Right.
independent
So,
political order.
so that's, I mean, again, you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing there, because I do find it super interesting in general, and I know there's even opportunity for people there now who are trying to get
Yes,
invested. Well,
we got 2 days left. 2 days
so
left
how's
for
it?
manufacturing permits.
Well, this is going to air after that, so everyone's going to miss this opportunity in terms of man. But how's that government differ from what you're seeing, in places like Germany or America? Or is it America because it's American Virgin Islands?
I work with a lot of people out of London and Sussex, Brussels, and those types of areas, as well as Australia, where I'm doing a lot of research and science on the cultivation and adaptation of genetics with the Caribbean Cannabis Project. But St. Vincent and the Grenadines was a really special time in my life. I started there about 9 years ago or something to help with passing the first medical marijuana laws, as well as their Medicinal Mushroom Act. And I was there with several other consultants to help with the prime ministers, Caesar Saboto, and other political people align with what would become the transition for amnesty farmers to become legal farmers, and then how that looked really based on what we went through in California. And so it echoed a lot. They've done a pretty good job because they have an independent nation, island nations, Caribbean nations. You understand they rule their own. They bow down to no one unless they super have to. But most of them are real powerful, real fun, and it's a beautiful space that is only 80 miles off the coast of Venezuela. So
Yeah.
right now, a lot of the spaces that I work in are really in a place of turmoil under the guise of drug trafficking. I believe it's actually an oil and gas war, due to as we know, Trump paralyzed the Venezuelan tanker not too long ago and has been blowing up people without prejudice, or with prejudice and without due process in several of the areas that I work in. And we have the largest military ships that I've ever seen in my existence, and are supposedly the largest ones on the planet, stationed on the island that I'm working on right now, which is St. Croix, United States Virgin Islands. And so I've been working there since 2002, helping implement the legal cannabis laws and giving review with university for the implementation of the laws, and then helping lots of different entrepreneurs try to build ships so they can sail off to a little bit of success in the newly implemented society. And so we're just now going through different phases. This year we went through the first micro cultivation license, tier 1 licensing. We just got done with the first round of retail licensing, which will be great success, because what's different about this place opposed to Jamaica, like you said, which is like British, and all of these other points in the Caribbean, which are British controlled or privately controlled for the most part, in the US Virgin Islands, our next round in January is actually consumption lounges. So we have the opportunity now to create an entire cannabis tourism industry that's grassroots. We made sure those laws are that the locals have the control, that if you're a Rastafari, if you're a woman, if you're a veteran, that you have power and equity in getting your licenses. And we're able to partner up with a lot of Westerners and people that want to invest. And we're going to be able to fly down with just not even a passport, just like one of those new IDs, and you're going to be able to just pop in and chill on the beach, smoking joint by Rastafari grown, um, just
Very
like a
cool.
bar. And so this is the first time this has been seen in the Caribbean where we're going to have consumption lounges for cannabis. And I mean, it's a lot of groundbreaking work going on in the Virgin Islands. We're only
When's that?
23 miles from Epstein Island, but
Yeah, let's talk
we are
Epstein.
repairing the nation from the scandals that have occurred. At least we're trying.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, we got military boats the size of Texas, but
yeah, that's sad. But and when is this going to be happening? When do you think that these will all pass through and this
oh,
tourism industry will be able to start the consumption
that
lounges?
I'm currently now I was up all night actually just helping finish the licensing process for two clients, and consumption lounge licensing will be open in January 2026. And so January 2026 we'll be starting to build standard operating procedures, finding infrastructure. We do have hurricanes that go on in the area and an unstable power supply. So, helping people look into solar plans, going into security plans, seeing how they can really partner with Western investors to create a really viable new industry that's never been seen before. The Caribbean cannabis tourism industry is definitely going to be heading out of the U.S. Virgin Islands from this point on out, and hopefully we can help Jamaica and the other places while we do it.
It'd be so cool. And will they be allowed to export? If they have GMP certified grown.
No, 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 no. United States Virgin Islands is governed by a federal law of the United States.
Okay, so
And so even though we're only a drop in the bucket, literally only 6 miles from the British Virgin Islands, um, we have very, very strict laws in the way of like we can't even transport between islands. So we can't have testing labs on one island, even though it's 8 miles wide. St. John has its own because we can't go in the water, you can't go in the air because those are federally governed waters that are militarized. And so
right.
we're not allowed to transport cannabis in any way, shape, or form.
That's too
And
bad.
yeah, it's real challenging to create these infrastructures on these tiny islands. And again, it's even more so working in a drug related industry such as cannabis, evolving into the legal infrastructure while there's simultaneously warships on our shores in a 32 square mile area that are giant warships that are supposedly stopping drug traffickers. So,
That's right. They're sitting there with their eye on Venezuela for whatever reason, right?
yeah, it's a real intense time in the Caribbean, and I'm blessed to get a chance to be a part of these historical events and help these people gain the very first licenses that have ever been seen in the history of the territory. But whoo, damn, it is a ride. I tell
Yeah,
you what, you
yeah,
gotta hold on tight.
yeah. Between Epstein and the bombing of the boats, it's definitely crazy times around where you're at for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
but it holds justification on how much power society can have now. We're able to redeem and give the power back to the people. And we know now more than ever because of the Epstein scandal that a huge amount of the oligarchy is rubbing elbows in order to achieve whatever objective that they have in this world.
they're
And
going.
that just stems us more to more education, more education. Let's keep
Yeah,
building.
active, yeah, and activism also. So I wanted to talk about something total shift here because it's I think it seems to really be also part of who you are and something you're obviously very proud of, which is your inventor side in the crop top product. And I got my own why I want a crop top story. I don't know if explained this to you, but so we had a really sunny, good summer this year. It was the sunniest, warmest summer in Quebec history. Okay, so my plants were doing so well, so big, so they were going to be next level. And all of a sudden, I started getting botrytis. all over the place.
Oh,
But
yeah.
why? But why? And I figured it out because some plants had none. It's because I was surrounded by old growth hemlock forest. And they're close. These big trees are right there. And some years they shed a lot more needles than other years. It was fucking raining hemlock needles. So when they're all falling in a bud that's, established and growing, but still has a month to go, and then you have dew point in the morning and it gets a little bit of moisture, those needles were rotting and they were creating the mold problems.
Hey, well,
And
botrytis is found in nature, so I
but
mean,
yeah, but stuff
part of it.
rots on your plant, right? You don't want things like you don't want organic material decomposing on your bud. So I was shaking the plants off and this shit was falling. But if they would have had a big old umbrella over them, nothing would have fallen on them. I would have been able to extend that season. And here in Quebec, and anyone who's in a northern part of the United States or Quebec, if you could put a little greenhouse over your plants, I can guarantee you it's going to turn out better. I guarantee it. You can start earlier, you can finish later, and shit won't fall all over your plant.
Yes,
So
for
I
sure. And thanks so much. I'm really excited to see the new edition. And thank you so much for the opportunity to put my invention story into Garden Culture magazine. It's really a lot of fun to be able to share my innovations that have premiered in Northern California for the last 10 years. And I didn't sell out to Monsanto or any of the big men. So I have created it, invented it, patented it, and done the entire process myself. And it has been a very expensive, time consuming, worthy journey into learning. And I really appreciate the people that take the time to use it. So
smart
crop tops
product.
was like literally born out of necessity because I
Yeah,
was trying to grow some sativas that in NorCal up in these elevations, there's just no way. They just won't work. You don't have enough time. The rain
that's it.
comes down, the caterpillars and the botrytis are only half the battle. You got snow,
Yeah,
you got everything else, and
yeah. Coming to where I live. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I mean, again, I when I first saw it, before I even talked to you, I saw it somewhere. And I thought, I'm like, I need that. Like, I
I'll
want
have to
that.
send you one. It's
And then I
definitely
ended up
Christmas.
talking to
I
you,
should
and it
have
was
done that
you.
anyways.
Yeah, I didn't even know. And then, like I said, I didn't put the two and two together when I first met you. I didn't know that was you. It was only afterwards, and it was because anyway, and it's
Cool.
not because I have what's called an ANCPR license. So I have a medical license to grow. Anybody in Canada who's got any medical thing can have
Yeah,
a lot of plants. So I'm legally allowed to have multiple plants outside, or I think of a 35 plant indoor script. It's not huge, but certainly it's enough.
that's wonderful. I
Um,
miss those. I'm about to move to Canada.
yeah, Canada.
Mhm.
But like growing
That what
outside
I love.
yeah, but growing outside in Quebec is very challenging. So
Yes.
if you're in a place, I don't have that much sun because I'm surrounded by trees, and we're not in Montreal, only an hour south, but we're like two zones difference up here.
Mhm.
I'm a little bit in the mountains, the hills, I wouldn't call them mountains where I am, but winter comes fast. Fall is nice, 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 nice. Then it's not.
Yeah, same here.
The
Yeah.
and it's the day night temperatures that's the problem. So we can still have 70, 75 for weeks and weeks and weeks, but
Yeah.
the nights are 50. So the dew point's a real problem, and plants get wet every single night. But if you put that in a tent, it doesn't happen. The same way if you put something in your car, it doesn't, like the temperature change isn't the same. You don't get
Absolutely.
nearly the same problems. So I am going to use this thing next year, and I am going to fucking from the rooftops sing. I already know. I don't have to think, is it going to work for me? I know it's going to work for me. I've almost wanted
Thank
to make one
you.
myself. Like I said, the idea is, how do I build something over this big giant plant
Yes,
without,
yes.
you know,
And what's fun is it starts at just a couple of feet tall. So the dome
that's it.
works
Yeah,
on its own, and then the telescoping pole allows it to go up to 10 feet. And I've had people use it over the 10-foot caging, which brought it up to 12-foot tall plants over 200-gallon grow pots. So right now I'm working on saving up basically to rebuild the innovation, which is a solar fan that magnetizes into the inside of it in order to finish evacuating any condensation that may be present because of the earth moisture that may be drawn up during those chilling hours and
yeah, yeah.
and those opposing points, because using it worldwide and doing research and development worldwide for products to be used in cannabis horticultural products has been an amazing journey, amazing learning experience for me to be able to, like, you can go into your area, and if anytime you're looking in through your stuff and you go, okay, this is what I need, just like you said, like you can build it, like you can literally build it, you can literally create it. And right now, with this age of innovation, it is imperative to stay inspired in innovations and not just focusing on drip molded plastic type concepts, but going back to the horseshoe. These were necessary innovations that brought about a huge amount of change into cultures and society, into commerce cycles, into our ability to transport goods and so many other things. Riding horses, I mean, using them for utilitarian reasons. And right now, when we have an opportunity to invent something in our gardens, I mean, sure, you have a shovel that has, a serrated edge on one and, and a pitchfork on the other and has a balance in the middle, or goodness knows where all of our creative tendencies comes from. But to have the moment of inspiration right now, where we're not just going to rely on just Chinese manufacturing, but having a lot of people here that are creators, that are coming home, American born, fucking invent stuff. Like, please do not be afraid to reinvent how you grow. There's hugelculture. There is, Korean natural farming that's going to help with rejuvenate your plants. There's going to be able to, the more that you innovate yourself with education, the more you're not only benefiting the planet and yourself with healthy, good food, but you're just helping innovate your neighbor, because then they're going to go, well, what the is Korean natural farming? What is Jadam? What is Jadam? And then they go down the rabbit hole as we've gone down a little bit, and then they realize, oh my gosh, this could make, my livestock this much healthier. This is going to make my trees this much healthier. This is going to make my grandkids, you know, money in the end. And so then
And
we can
healthier.
really use it as a catalyst for world change. All we got to do
Yeah.
is just be inspired, you guys. I know you got some cool inventions out there in your brains. Bring them forth. Let's talk about them.
And that's on the both Hugo culture. We had someone write an article for us, 10 years ago in the magazine, and I've built maybe 5 different ones outside it. And we always joke around when there's a pile of seals like Hugel. I'm like, oh, this is built. Let's just build it up. And I think we've done about 8 articles on Korean natural farming. We had a series for a while, and it's also something I have brewed up some horrific things and some magical things. I have made ferments out of things, and I used them wrong. And then I had stems growing out of buds. I made a ferment out of a root once. It's the first flower to grow in Quebec in the spring. It grows before everything, colds foot, and so I cut the flowers and I made a flower ferment, and I cut the roots and I made a root ferment. And I accidentally used them at the wrong time. Like I used the root one in flowering, and I fuck it up. Like the plants were so weird. They grew so all the time. I'm like, that plant looks weird. Like, weeks in. And then maybe 3 weeks into flowering, and I'm like, what's going? And all of a sudden, there's stems growing out of the buds. I've never seen it.
So,
I've never seen it
so
before.
what
I've never
happens
seen it
there,
since.
if I could tell you for a moment, is so a lot of what's happening when we have these fermentation methods from like these beautiful elements, such as inoculation cultures that you've grabbed from forest floors or leaves or other beautiful things. So what that natural entity is actually doing is producing hormones. We were talking about hormones earlier. And those
Yeah.
hormones, again, it could be abscisic acid, which causes leaf fall, or gibberellic acid, which is actually the divisionary element, which is
Yes.
causing spontaneous growth. And so you had an element of a hormone from such healthy elements that are going on there that it was willing to spontaneously grow and
Yeah.
regrow using that gibberellic acid. So there's lots of different elements, the hormones that control, like auxin, which controls your terminal bud growth at the top as well as your lateral growth. And
Yeah.
and so when you learn that these fermentations can affect the bioavailability of hormones in plant materials, that's when you really know what PGRs
Yeah.
are about
That's
plant growth regulators. and how the dudes that know more than us, they're gonna make frogs have 4 legs, and we're not even gonna know why. Just exactly what you're talking about right now.
So, but I don't have tons of time. I said I usually try to wrap it up around an hour, but if we go past, I couldn't care less. I do want you to go on and go off on, and I'm growing all organic now, which you probably like that. I'm using the Gaia Green line, and I love it.
Oh,
And
that's not bad.
I'm part of something called the Great Canadian Grow Off. So it's 151 clones given out to 151 people. It's a poorly rooted clone. They don't give you a well-rooted clone on purpose. They
Right.
give you a poorly rooted clone, and they don't tell you anything other than it's Pepe Le Couche. So that's the
Pepe the
strain.
Kush? Is that
Hilarious.
what you're
So,
growing?
yeah, well, I'm growing a bunch of stuff, but that's one. Well, I'm growing Reggie's Criz, Reggie Weedman. I'm growing the Criz, his 20-year back cross on whatever Hawaiian strain. It's like my
Reggie
absolute.
is my boy. He was in St.
Oh,
Vincent and the Grenadines with me, and
he
yeah, I
love this.
enjoy speaking with him regularly. He's
I love
great
him.
at what he does, and
Oh my God,
our community
he's
is
an
really strong here in Northern California. I
yeah,
definitely enjoy it.
he's amazing, and also Jackson and some of his stuff too, and
Jackson is
also
badass, and there's so many great dudes from the. I mean, we could go off on that for
yeah.
days, but
Well, I know those two guys mainly through my friend Jessica Lilga, who I don't know if you, and
I love Jessica. She's badass too.
she's my best friend. Like, she's one of my favorite people. We've been friends for over 20 years. I absolutely love her. So, organic, synthetic. So I've heard you back. I've always been like, oh, it doesn't matter. I've grown synthetic stuff, and I challenge anyone to say, it's so good, it's so tasty, it's so amazing. I can't tell. I can't tell the difference between organic and synthetic, just to be clear. I've done for 25 years, I've grown weed, and I have
It's a
done
really
both.
broad conversation, though, Eric. I
It
mean,
is. We don't have it. That 3 minutes is not enough to cover it.
yeah.
So,
Well,
uh,
just the concept of organic is a certification that doesn't necessarily identify that something is better than or less than. It only has to
living
have
soil, though, you know what I mean?
48% organic material in order to buy into that
Yeah.
certification basis.
I'm talking about proper, crafted, living soil, fed with teas, fed with microbes. That soil versus my canna, or mills or whatever I've grown with, you know what I mean? But it's good. Like I said, I've done both. I've built these beautiful horizontal bed gardens indoors that
Mhm.
I've done it. I have done every way you could imagine. And some of the best stuff I ever grew was with Canada. I don't compare the sun to indoors. The sun does something
It
special.
depends on which element, not to interrupt, makes it
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
synthetic. Well, a synthetic could be derived from many things. Some serious gnarly salts that are actually, they're collected from uric acid that are in large farms of cows that are fed
Yeah, yeah.
biopharma pills in order to have antibiotics in their system. So therefore, we're just eating big pharma through uric acid that is gone through and then is absorbed through the plants that is there's that form of, synthesization, but there's other forms of synthetics that could include, as we've discussed through this conversation, PGRs. And so one thing that you don't want in present in your soil because it manipulates your climate and your environment through your watershed and through your body ingesting it through oral ingestion aspects is PGRs. So if your synthetic product is including PGRs, yes, it's going to be denser. Yes, it's going to be higher production rate. Yes, it may have a crystalline structure that is, obviously symbolic of trichrome production, but it will not hold the oily, true resinous gland that is coming and exposed through the trichromial glandular system because those glandulars are born of oils. So if you're taking something that is salt is a dehydrant, right? So salt is literally a dehydrant. Just think of that.
Mhm.
Salt water dries out a wound. So if you're pouring salts on something that is made of 78 to 85% water, right? There's a constant kinetic or atomic battle that's going inside of it. So minerals that is in water, all minerals are metal, right? Calcium, our bones, they're made of metal. Calcium is a metal, boron's a metal, magnesium's a metal. All of these metals are magnetized or have a polar angling towards a nucleus, positive, negative, or whatever. in those fertilizer companies, they may be able to manipulate the negative or positive ions that are transecting that may have an effect of chelated ions becoming more bioavailable or other forms of synthesized activities that may not necessarily mean negative. They just are not able to become organic certified. So there has to be a little bit of research and due diligence into the actual formulation of whatever product line that you choose from. And I just say, just steer away from those salts that are based from, large agricultural, big pharma cow farming. And then you're probably good. The PGRs, everybody needs bigger tits. I mean, sorry. I mean,
Not really.
I
Right.
don't
All
know.
right.
That's just a joke that I would have to say because PGRs like mess with our hormones. It
Yeah, listen,
literally is causing infertility in people.
well, I knew from the get-go that this was going to be a heavier conversation with you than my average podcast. So I wanted to close it off with
Try
10
and take my
questions.
mushrooms. We'll have to microdose and have a good
We'll
one next one.
do it next time. 10 questions. Try to give me short answers. So I'm going to ask you 10 questions. All right. Some of them are about cannabis, some are about nothing related at all.
Oh, I'm
So,
excited.
so again, keep it relatively short. Tell
Okay.
us about your first ever grow.
First ever grow that was completely mine.
Yep.
Okay. My first ever grow was in a 5-gallon bucket on the backside of BLM, which is Bureau of Land Management, federal lands that I shouldn't probably admit that, whatever. That was up a hill and over the side of a hillside next to a creek, and I was 14 years old.
Beautiful.
And I had a whole bunch of plants that were sitting around half dead at one of the farmers' houses, and they were throwing them away. And darned if I didn't just slide them into my backpack and decide to walk them on out there, and they survived. And that was my first experience.
First grow. Dogs or cats?
Dogs. I love cats, but they aren't emotionally subjective enough for me.
Mine is, but that's another story. First cannabis related memory.
Ooh. I might be too sober to recall this, but I think that I was sitting on my uncle's lap at probably about 3 or 4 years old, and he was smoking a joint. And I remember smelling it and telling him like, "You smell funny," and I just remember, putting a pain in the ass. And I remember holding an orange, and he said, "Oh, really?" And he took another puff and he blew it towards me into my
Oh,
face.
he's
That
bad
and I had
uncle.
an orange in my hand, and I squeezed the orange at his face, and it squirted juice in his eyes, and he was like, "Ah," and then like threw
Serves
the
him right.
joint down. And I think
With
that was
three
my
of those
very
eyes.
first memory.
What's your favorite style of music? Your favorite band?
Oh, I am an Aquarius, so I am eclectic. I love all music, and if it can make my booty bounce, you probably got me 2 tones into the red zone. I love soca, which is Southern Caribbean, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like reggae. Got
Beat.
together with a salsa teacher, so it's a little bit faster reggaeton
Love
beat.
it. Yeah.
And I love bluegrass and good old country, Creedence Revival, and some good old classics.
Yeah. Everyone thinks they're from the Bayou, but they're from San Francisco, right?
Uh,
CCR?
yeah, well, up in Humboldt where we were at, yeah, it feels like the bayou all the time because
Yeah.
half the time off grid, I feel like somebody's playing the Deliverance out there.
All right. Favorite food?
Oh, Thai food. I
Mhm.
love coconut soup and I love all Thai things. I've been a vegetarian for about 25 years, so I love everything I love plants so much I want to eat them all the
Nice. Yeah.
time.
What are you most proud of?
I am most proud of my ability to overcome huge amounts of poverty and tragedy in my life, and that the fact that I was born not just in a really bad, persecuted situation with every single thing stacked against me. I found my way out through abuse, through everything that you could throw at me, baby. I found a way out, and I'm still finding a way out. So,
And
emotional intelligence, the ability to evolve, and knowing that mankind's evolution is important.
And you're doing great. Biggest misconception of cannabis users.
Cannabis sativa and cannabis indica are the same plant, but that they're different plants. So you go into a dispensary, they say cannabis or indica. They think that that defines the cannabinoid base or an effect, meaning that, oh, indica is being more sedative, sativa is going to be upper. It's a complete bullshit. The cannabis sativa is binomial nomenclature that identifies the growth characteristics. That nomenclature is simply a taxonomy and doesn't actually identify the cannabinoids or chemical basis that the plant has to offer, and definitely does not imply the effect that that plant will have on you.
Your nomenclature taxonomy article is going in the next edition, by the way.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your inclusion.
I don't know. Thank you. And finally, you describe yourself in 10 words or less. If it's 12 words, that's okay.
Off-grid inventor, grow girl, loving mom.
That's awesome. Well, there you go, everyone. There's AC Moon.
On the rage. How many words is that?
AC Moon, everybody. Where can people get to know if they want to go to your for your product, for yourself, know more about you, follow you?
Thanks so much. I want to hear more about you the next time I get to talk to you, because you're interviewing people and I want to know about your background. My website is Indica Innovations International at indicainnovations.com, as well as Crop Tops Greenhouse. Right now I am redoing the website, but that would normally be found at croptopsgreenhouses.com. I'm working now with the Caribbean Cannabis Project as well as the Botanical Congress in order to reschedule and define cannabis and sativa. You can find me on LinkedIn at AC Moon on Instagram and all over the world, hoping to pull off some smiles. I know I get a bit serious, but it's because I wasn't getting to smoke a joint through this one. Next time I'll smoke.
Then we'll have to meet up soon live. But like I said, I'm so glad that we become friends, that we know each other. I love talking to you. You're one of the few people I talk to when I get off the phone. I was like, damn, like I didn't know that. Or I'll get right online. I'll start reading something.
I appreciate that.
And I'm so glad that you came on. You kicked me in the butt and made sure I understood that I needed to mix it up and not just have a bunch of white dudes on my podcast.
Thank you. Please have diversity all over the world. We're having a huge conversation around plants, and cannabis is just a catalyst for world change. Hopefully we can turn everybody organic or Jadam or Haiti. There's so many things we can do together, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, listen, you're the best. Thank you so much, and we'll have you on again another time with another comment. When I get back from my next trip to South Africa, we can talk all about Africa, right?
I got some stories about Africa. I tell you
Or you
what.
could come. Yeah, or you could come to when I'm heading out there, and we can go do it. You know, Celia's going to come, and it's going to be awesome. So
I definitely will. Let's do it. South Africa trip, here we come. We got to go to Nimbeye and meet these beautiful people and help with the crazy stuff that's going on. Please, when you're going to Africa, pay attention to the Kush tragedy. The Kush tragedy is huge, and it's something that we need to, advocate and pay attention to, and also understand that SEO is going towards Kush being a negative word because of it.
Wow. Well, that sounds like an article for the South African edition, right? So awesome. So thank you again. We'll see you again soon.